The transfer of Luis Guilherme to West Ham is significant for a number of reasons, but I find it most symbolic because it ends the dithering days of transfers. We'll call it the Dithering Dave days if you want. I'm not sure how many times I would have read this, but there were numerous times when we'd be looking to buy a player and we'd get close to buying a player and you'd hear back, the manager's not sure. This is not something that's exclusive to West Ham, by the way. It was one of the reasons given for his sacking from Manchester United. He wouldn't buy any players. He took too long to sign players. There was too much due diligence. You heard it again. It was a frustration of the Everton fans. It was the Everton fans who originally coined the moniker Dithering Dave. It wasn't us. It wasn't a West Ham thing. It's something that's followed him throughout his career. But this is not a video to try and, rubbish David Moyes or anything like that. It's more a relief to know that those days are finished, those days are over. Because, look, there's a lot of people that have the ear of the chairman, if you want. There's a lot of leaked information comes out of West Ham, and some of it, it actually turns out to be quite useful. And this is certainly one of them. So a lot of people who were sort of in the nose, who would be able to approach the club and be able to get some sort of comment about transfers, would hear the same thing. Lots of different people would hear the same thing. The manager's not quite sure. What we did was we coined it the David Moyes MOT. And, of course, what it wasn't so much surrounding players' technical ability, kicking the ball, trapping the ball, crossing, tackling, all that stuff that are sort of measurable metrics, if you want. It was more what was going on up there, what was going on there. David Moyes wanted a team player. He wanted someone committed. He wanted to know the content of a man's character as much as anything else. He wanted to know that whoever he was going to bring in was going to fit into the dressing room and not unbalance the equilibrium of the team spirit. Let's put it that way. I don't think that the fact of the matter is it didn't work. It just didn't. His MOT, his due diligence, his reluctance to rush into transfer didn't actually result in West Ham getting players who were no trouble, basically, who were fully committed to the cause. I mean, I haven't actually written any down, but just off the top of my head, and when I'm saying them, you yourself, you're going to think of more. I mean, let's just go to... I mean, it looked like Calvin Phillips, when he signed Calvin Phillips was a bit of a train wreck mentally, and you could understand why, because he hadn't played for 18 months, and basically possibly his confidence had been eroded at Manchester City. But where was the due diligence? Why didn't it bring that up? It turned out that actually Maxwell Cornet, that David Moyes wasn't impressed with Cornet by the end of it, because he didn't feel he was committed. Well, where was the due diligence? Why didn't that come up? The same for Nathan Gerd. Nathan Gerd was a player who David Moyes chased for the best part of 2 years. Really wanted him. He was integral to how West Ham were going to play. If you remember, we were going to have this switch of focus. We were going to play more attacking football 2 seasons ago. And yes, look, Nathan Gerd's start at West Ham was sort of blighted by injury, no doubt about it. But actually, it wasn't sort of his inability to kick the ball that's seen him out of West Ham. He just doesn't want to be here. He's cast his eyes elsewhere. Actually, the rumour about Nathan Gerd is he preferred, he prioritised playing for his country over West Ham. He would, when it was getting near to an international game, he'd sort of pull himself out and stuff like that, if you pardon the expression. Allegedly, by the way. That's not me saying this, I must point that out. But those were the rumours coming out. Well, where was the due diligence then? Why wasn't this? Where we spent so long looking for players who were committed to the cause and had good team ethic. And by the way, I do think Nathan Gerd is good. Apparently he's a really, really nice lad to have around and everybody gets on with him really well. Let me just say that. But my point is, all this dilly-dally, it basically didn't work. So I'm really, really pleased that we're now looking to bring players in and do it early. I've never understood why you do it anything other than early. It's almost like West Ham, I've said it before in transfer windows, it's almost like we've set the rules ourselves. We've given ourselves our own restrictions. We must only sign players later on in the window. Now, don't get me wrong. There were some that were signed earlier than usual in terms of Mohamed Kudus and whatnot last season. But Tim Steidten was on board then. And we have, before, not waited till the end of the window to do it. But by and large, what we've never done is got it done early, before the window, because that's what we're doing now. That's what's happened with this Guilherme. Whilst you can't actually technically sign a player outside of a transfer window, you can scout them. You can approach the club to let the club know that you're going to be transferred. You can negotiate with the club, you just can't ratify the deal. Yet for somehow it's almost like sprinters at a start line, and the gun goes off, and we're still waiting. We're still waiting for something. Well, those days appear to be gone now, because you'll have already heard the timeline. Gio did a video earlier on this morning, and the timeline for Fabrizio Romano released it yesterday. Guilherme flies out with his team, his representatives, today on a Sunday. He'll arrive Monday, apparently, and medical's booked for Tuesday, Wednesday. We expect him to sign the documents this week, next week, you get what I'm saying. And that's brilliant. Why not? There's no reason not to do it, particularly with these foreign players as well. Particularly coming from a completely different continent. Maybe Europe's, slightly easier. But we've already been told that Guilherme's bringing his family with him. That's a big upheaval. So why would you not? Why would you not give them a whole extra month to settle in as a family? It's like, don't worry about training. You don't come back to training until well into July, or whatever the case may be. Get yourself sorted out. There'll be the player liaisons officer with West Ham. You get you sorted out with your accommodation. There'll be obviously Portuguese-speaking people at the club who are basically going to help them out, help people settle. And then when day one of training starts, your player is there. One advantage that is, how often have you heard David Moyes say that a player's not up to speed yet because they haven't had a pre-season? It used to do my head in. One of David Moyes' worst traits was he used to comment on things as if he was not part of them, as if an accident had befallen him. So he gets to a point and say, we've got no striker. Well, that's your fault, mate. You decided not to buy one. But he would often say, these players aren't ready yet. They haven't had a pre-season. That's because you take so long to sign them, mate. Not with this transfer. And as I understand it, they're moving on from this transfer to another one. It might be that Vital. Don't know. Truth of the matter is, I don't know. And I don't even know if this player is going to be good, bad, or indifferent. I just don't know. But I really like the fact that we're going to go and try and do it early. I like the fact that we're scouting for younger people. I had a few comments yesterday, some bizarre comments over the last couple of days that I don't like Guilherme. Oh, it's weird. Honestly, it's weird. Really just a couple of comments. It's always like this binary thing again. You either think Guilherme's going to be Pele or just complete shit. And there's nothing in the middle. And I'm banging in the middle. I don't know. I absolutely don't know. I don't know. I suspect he might take a little while to get going. But it doesn't mean I hate him or I don't want him, which was a type of crap levelled against... to be fair, I've stopped reading it anyway. But it was a type of stuff that is just absolute madness. I don't know. He honestly... But I like the fact that we're trying to do it. Because the worst thing to do is be the middle club. Do you know what I mean? So often, you'll have seen it with Portuguese clubs. The Portuguese clubs, be it Sporting or Porto, whoever else, they'll go over to Brazil and they go and sign these young players. And then they go over to Portugal. They play well. And then from Portugal, they've basically become £50 million players there. So it's really, I think it's important that you cut out the middleman, which is what we're trying to do. And it seems like Stuyton's trying to buy up half of Brazil at the moment. It really does. And you know what? I don't think the club don't look incompetent anymore. The club don't look negligent. So there's a certain number of homegrown players that have to be registered within any squads. I think I don't think the Ben Johnson deal's dead yet. I think signing back up an Aaron Cresswell. I think the club probably know what they're doing. So can the club go out there and sign three Brazilian players? Yeah, absolutely. No problem at all. I'm sure they've done their due diligence in terms of knowing what they're buying and knowing what squad numbers that they're going to have. And I don't expect this Guilherme to go straight into the team. Why would you? How could he? If the rumours are that a striker is a massive priority, so you suspect we're going to go and get a senior striker. I don't know this, but I suspect the striker's not going to be an 18-year-old, right? And if that's the case, then you are going to be looking at a front line of the striker, Bowen and Kudus. But when you have a manager who's going to be more, who's not going to not use somebody, who's actually going to be have more intent to use players off the bench and use substitutes, then that's a really good start for this Guilherme. But anyway, it's not about that. I digress on that. It is it's an insistence. It takes, even though Tim Steidten is doing the transfers, it does take an insistence from the head coach. And I do think a lot of this has been driven by him. Steidten would have wanted to get stuff done early. It must have been so frustrating. It must be so frustrating having a skill set and not being able to use it, right? Steidten's skill set is going out, scouting players, building infrastructure, data-driven analysis. Then he goes out, they highlight players, they get the data, they go and watch them, and then they bring players in. That's his job. He's not been able to do his job. He's not a painter without any paint and paintbrushes, basically. And it must have been a frustrating time for him. So he would have wanted to be out there. And now you've got a head coach saying, well, actually, I want this stuff done early because I want to hit the ground running. So it's preparation, which is actually was something that has kind of, the club have said that. They have machine guns those three words out. Preparation. You can quote them directly on it. And it's not just coming from the head coach who wants everybody fit and firing and ready at the start of pre-season. So when the first game goes, they've already been working on the training ground, their tactics. It's preparation from the scouting team and from Tim Steidten, who basically, you heard this before, it was the story was out there in between the games we faced Leverkusen. He flew out to Brazil twice. He's been doing his groundwork for so long now, and this is why you can. This is why you can get it. Look, you'll never know behind the scenes, but I always got the impression that it got to the transfer window. Maybe David Moyes' list was handed out, and it just leaves no time. It is completely hurried, and it must be bad for the club. It must be bad for people working at the club. And I mean everyone, even the media department, have got to hurriedly get all that stuff done very, very late in the winter. But for the tactics, for everything else, why would you not want to get players in early? It just seems. It seems crazy, and obviously the pool that you're fishing in is considerably smaller because a lot of these other players have been bought up. I don't like FFP, as you probably gathered. However, West Ham do have a little bit of an advantage in this window because it's not just selling Declan Rice. It's not just selling Ben Rama and Tilo Kehrer. It's actually before that there was a lot of. We've had a small squad for a little while now. It's getting players like Lanzini, who was a high earner off the wage bill, and by the way, I thought we missed him last season. There's players like that. There's a lot of them. We've been getting these players off the wage bill for quite some time. So actually, we're relatively healthy. We can go and spend a bit of money, and it might be 100 million. But when there are some clubs who actually have to sell, actually 100 million is quite a lot of money. So we do have a little bit of an opportunity now. Also, it gives us an opportunity whereby we can turn down, if someone comes along with a derisory offer for one of our players, we can turn it down. You heard the thing about Newcastle recently. There's a number from Aston Villa. Might have to sell a couple of, or at least one of their players. A Douglas Luiz, possibly. I don't know. I don't think it's Ollie Watkins, but there was a player or two they might have to sell just to break even. Now the thing is, they're going to be forced quite possibly to take less money for a player from a big club than they would ideally like, and it's hard for them. It's hard for them if they're pushing and they're trying to compete, and on a season when they might have. Well, they are if they're going to go and play in Europe. Ideally, they'd be strengthening their squad, not weakening it. So West Ham are actually in quite a good position, but we won't be in this situation every season. So now's the time to do it. If we can get in there now, buy these players, and there's been no better time to switch over to a model where you can sort of buy low and sell high. That's really what we've got to do under the current parameters, under the current rules. Anyway, but there you go. Best way to do it is to get these players early. And I think we're now seeing the first sort of green shoots, if you want, of, I guess, this vision that was put into place last season with the appointment of Tim Steidten and then subsequent hiring of Maximilian Hans. He's come on board, and Steidten's brothers come on board, and a number of other people. Lopetegui's brought some people on. I think Lopetegui's son is a scout as well. So I think we're now seeing the green shoots of the full implementation, I guess, of a continental system. So, yeah, hopefully it works. Anyway, there you go. Looks like a done deal. Luis Guilherme to West Ham, flying over on a plane later on today. Arrives Monday, medical Tuesday and Wednesday. Thorough medical, quite right too. Shame Kurt Zouma didn't have one of those.